My name is Danielle Harris. I'm 31 years old, living in Denver, Colorado. The day I had been waiting for nearly a year finally arrived. My wedding to the man I trust most, Ethan Miller. When the church doors opened and light poured in, I walked down the red carpet in a flowing white gown. Music filled the air, lavender bouquets lined the aisle. Everything felt like a sweet dream. We exchanged vows before friends, family, and colleagues I once considered my second family. When the pastor declared, "You are now husband and wife," my heart overflowed with joy. Ethan squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with the peace I had always searched for during years of work pressure. But less than 10 minutes later, the dream shattered. Just as I left the sanctuary and stepped into the reception hall, the phone inside my bridesmaid's purse, my best friend who was holding it for me, buzzed non-stop. She hurriedly handed it to me when she saw the screen flashing again and again. I frowned, surprised. Who would be calling relentlessly on my wedding day? As I unlocked the phone, a new text appeared, only 10 words long, yet it cut through me like a knife. "You're fired. Consider it my wedding gift to you." The sender was Ryan Caldwell, 33 years old, the only son of the owner of the architecture firm where I worked. His name alone was enough to make employees shiver. Arrogant and ruthless. I froze. Still in my pristine white dress, bouquet of red roses in hand, I stared at the screen, unable to believe it was real. My head spun. Why no? Why choose the happiest day of my life to strike the cruelest blow? Ethan noticed my pale face. He gently placed a hand on my shoulder, leaned down and whispered, "What's wrong, Danielle?" I handed him the phone, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. After reading, he frowned, but instead of anger, the corner of his mouth curved into a faint smile. "Look at me, Danielle. Don't let him ruin our day. Trust me." I was stunned. How could Ethan stay so calm? I had just lost the job I poured 2 years of effort into, the project manager position I earned through endless sleepless nights. I had just been humiliated publicly on my wedding day, before either family had even lifted a glass in celebration. Yet Ethan smiled. He tightened his grip on my hand, placing a gentle kiss on my trembling fingers. "I have reason to believe this isn't the end. Let today belong to us. Can you do that?" I swallowed hard. The trust in his eyes kept me from breaking down in the middle of the reception. I took a deep breath, slipped the phone back into my purse and walked out with my husband where cheers and confetti rained down. But inside my heart was in chaos. Every smile of congratulations, every clink of glasses sounded distant and hollow. My mind replayed those cold words over and over. Ryan hadn't just wanted to take away my job. He wanted to turn my most important day into a nightmare I would never forget. I looked up at the glittering chandeliers above, and one question echoed in my mind. What else does he have planned? And so I kept smiling, kept raising my glass, kept dancing my first dance with Ethan, as if I hadn't just been betrayed. Soft jazz floated through the ballroom lit with golden chandeliers, and I forced myself into Ethan's arms for our first dance. But my mind had no room for melodies or applause. Each step felt mechanical. I heard friends cheering, relatives laughing, but inside, my heart weighed heavy with that cruel message. As soon as the music ended, Sophie, my maid of honor and closest friend, rushed over. Her face was pale, her hand trembling as the phone buzzed non-stop. "Danielle, you have to look now. Your phone hasn't stopped ringing, you've got over 100 missed calls." I shuddered. 100? Who would call so frantically? I snatched the phone, eyes scanning the screen. The list stretched endlessly: co-workers, the company line, and most alarming of all, over 10 missed calls from Gregory Caldwell, Ryan's father and the founder of Caldwell Architecture, the firm I had dedicated the last 2 years to. My pulse raced. Gregory, nearly 60, was sharp, powerful, and notoriously strict. But never, not once, had he lowered himself to hound any employee like this. Not even senior directors. With shaky hands, I opened my voicemail. His deep, urgent voice spilled out, "Danielle, this is Gregory. Call me immediately. Something very serious has happened. Ryan had no authority to do this. We need you." The next message came, faster, more desperate. "The downtown project is at a standstill. No one can access the system you designed. Everything has frozen. I'm begging you, call me back." Another followed, his tone heavy. "Clients are growing impatient. Updated blueprints have vanished. The engineering team is paralyzed. Ryan tried your passwords, nothing worked. Danielle, only you can fix this. My fingers clenched the phone tighter. A mix of dread and bitter satisfaction washed over me. The very system I had built through sleepless nights, the one Ryan had mocked, was now the beating heart of the entire firm, and the reason they were on their knees pleading for me. Ethan slid into the chair beside me, quietly listening to the recordings. When Gregory's final plea echoed, "Without you we lose everything," Ethan clasped my hand, his eyes calm yet piercing. "Do you see now, Danielle? This isn't an ending. This is when you hold all the power." I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. The ballroom buzzed with laughter, champagne glasses clinking, but I felt cut off from it all. In my mind, Ryan's smirk blurred with Gregory's desperate voice. The last voicemail stunned me most. Gregory's tone trembled in a way I'd never heard. "Danielle, if you hear this, please help me. I'll pay whatever it takes. Don't let your work be buried because of my son's recklessness." My hand clenched tighter. Today I had been humiliated with one text. Yet in the same breath, these calls revealed the truth. I alone held the survival key to Caldwell architecture. Sophie leaned close, whispering so only I could hear, "Danielle, if you want, just one call back could change everything." I drew in a long breath and lifted my eyes to the massive mirror across the hall. In the reflection beneath the veil and the white silk, I didn't just see a happy bride. I saw the outline of a woman standing at the most critical crossroads of her life. I sat quietly in the bridal lounge, my white gown spread across the velvet sofa. The phone on the table kept glowing with a long list of missed calls. Gregory Caldwell, the name that appeared the most, kept my mind restless. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and childhood memories rushed back, clear as a slow-motion film. I was born in a small town in western Kentucky. My family was far from well-off. My father repaired farm machinery, my mother worked as a grocery cashier. Their modest income barely covered utilities and medicine. When I was 16, my father had a workplace accident, breaking his back, no longer able to do heavy labor. Our family fell into crisis. I thought about quitting school to work full-time, but my father, writhing in pain on the bed, gripped my hand and said, "You have to keep studying. Only knowledge can open the door out of this life." Those words became my compass in the years that followed. I studied while working nights at a local cafe, shifts dragging on until 2 a.m. Some nights I fell asleep at the table, textbooks unfinished. But I never gave up. I knew if I stopped, my family would never have a chance to rise. At 18, I earned a full scholarship in construction project management at the University of Michigan. I walked into classrooms with dark circles under my eyes, but inside me burned a fire that couldn't be extinguished. I worked harder than anyone, attended every seminar, volunteered to assist professors just to gain real-world access. 4 years later, I graduated with honors along with a minor in technology systems. That foundation made me stand out when I applied to Caldwell Architecture. Gregory, still directly running the company then, looked through my file and said bluntly, "You're not just capable. You know how to turn hardship into drive. That's exactly the kind of person I need." In the early days at Caldwell, I worked like a machine. I remembered every client detail, every technical requirement, never missing a number. I quickly saw the company's weakness: scattered management, piles of paperwork, departments working in silos slowing everything down. I proposed reforms, but no one believed a 29-year-old woman could change a system that had been in place for 3 decades. I didn't give up. I quietly built my own management software, testing it with a small group. The results exceeded all expectations. Project completion time dropped by nearly 1/3, errors decreased sharply, and clients were far more satisfied. Gregory saw it firsthand and exclaimed, "Danielle, this system will save the entire company." From then on, I became the heartbeat of Caldwell Architecture. Every project, big or small, went through me. Every department depended on the system I had created. Colleagues called me the living database because no one remembered details the way I did. I knew which drawings needed revisions, which budgets were about to overrun, even the quirks of every client. But when Gregory began stepping back to prepare for retirement, he placed Ryan, his 33-year-old son, into management. Ryan was 2 years older than me, never sticking long in any department. Handsome, confident posture, but impatient and lacking vision. In his eyes, I was nothing more than the lucky female employee overly praised by Dad. I still remember the scornful look on Ryan's face during a report. This system just complicates things. I don't see any real benefit. I tried explaining with data, but he dismissed me, even canceling the training sessions I had set up for staff. I could see the resentment in his eyes each time Gregory praised me publicly. But I never imagined Ryan would choose to humiliate me on the most important day of my life. Now, sitting in my own wedding with Gregory's desperate calls flooding in, I realized one truth. All those sleepless nights, all those years of resilience were never in vain. They had made me the sole keeper of Caldwell Architecture's survival. After the wedding, when the congratulations had faded, memories of working under Ryan returned vividly, like a black and white film in slow motion, each of his reckless decisions cutting silently into Caldwell Architecture's reputation and safety. As soon as Gregory began stepping back from leadership, Ryan crowned himself the absolute authority. He pushed me out of nearly every important meeting. The detailed reports I had prepared, accurate down to the last figure, were tossed aside. Instead, Ryan stood before the board, reading aloud ideas that were mine, claiming the credit for himself. One spring afternoon, I walked into a meeting room earlier than expected. The projector's light fell across Ryan's face as he presented a so-called system reform plan. I immediately recognized every line of code, every analysis. They were the very work I had labored over for months. When I entered, he gave me one cold glance before continuing as if I didn't exist. Anger surged in me, I almost spoke up. But Gregory sat at the head of the table, smiling and nodding. He had no idea the work wasn't Ryan's. I swallowed the bitterness and stepped back out. From that day on, I understood. Ryan didn't just want to undermine me. He wanted to erase my name completely from every trace of success. He went further, ordering the cancellation of all the training sessions I had organized for engineers and office staff. He claimed they were too expensive and unnecessary. I tried to explain that without training, no one could run the system properly. Ryan sneered, "You think you're irreplaceable, Danielle? No one is irreplaceable." With training gone, knowledge was locked away and my colleagues struggled with the system. They had to rely on Ryan, who knew only a handful of shallow steps. I realized that was his plan. Make the system seem unworkable so I'd be branded the burden, giving him an excuse to say, everything is complicated because of Danielle. But the truth was far more terrifying. Ethan, then working at the city's permit office, once showed me blueprints Ryan had submitted. At first I didn't believe him, but when I looked closely, my chest tightened. The drawings had been altered after the engineering team had signed off. Critical details about materials and safety structures had been crossed out and replaced with cheaper substitutes. A load-bearing wall was reduced to nearly 1/3 of its intended thickness. The emergency exit in a 15-story tower was removed under the pretense of saving space. The fire safety system was stripped down so much it no longer met even basic codes. Every red mark of change was an alarm bell of looming disaster. Ethan's voice was heavy. "Danielle, if these changes are built in reality, even the smallest incident could turn catastrophic." I shuddered. Ryan wasn't just sabotaging my career, he was endangering hundreds of lives for profit. I tried to warn Gregory. Once I laid all the altered documents before him in his office. He frowned, glanced through, then sighed. "Danielle, I know you're dedicated. But Ryan needs a chance to prove himself. He might be rash, but he'll learn." I went cold. Even with clear evidence, Gregory was blinded by fatherly devotion. He believed Ryan was simply inexperienced, while I was too harsh. From that moment, I knew I was alone. Every warning I gave was ignored. Every effort to keep the company on course was strangled. Ryan grew bolder, even mocking me in front of colleagues. "One day, Caldwell Architecture will only remember the name Caldwell. Danielle is just passing through." That sentence was the final dagger etched into my memory. He didn't just want me gone, he wanted to use the very system I built to cement his power. Looking back, I understood. The text message firing me on my wedding day wasn't impulsive. It was a calculated move, the final strike to erase me entirely from Caldwell Architecture. I sat alone in the hotel bridal suite, still in my white gown, makeup smudging after the long day. My phone on the table kept lighting up with missed calls. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't hear them, but because I knew the truth. Only I held the key to saving Caldwell Architecture, and that gave me the power of choice. Ethan walked in carrying 2 glasses of red wine. He set one in front of me, pulled out a chair, and looked straight into my eyes. Danielle, you know they can't run the system without you. Ryan has cornered both himself and the company. I gave a faint laugh, swirling the wine. I used to think Caldwell was my whole world. No. One text is all it took to erase everything. Ethan took my hand, his voice steady and low. No, Danielle. You're not erased. You're in the strongest position you've ever been. They need you more than ever. The question is, do you still need them? I stayed silent. In that moment, one thought sparked inside me. All the years I poured into Caldwell, building the management system from scratch, no longer belonged to them. It belonged to me. That system was written in my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. Ryan could sign a termination notice, but he could never fire the mind and knowledge I carried. The phone buzzed again, this time an email from Gregory. I opened it and one line steadied my pulse. Danielle, please save us. I will pay whatever it takes. Ethan saw the faint smile tug at my lips and tilted his head. What are you thinking? I answered firmly, this isn't a tragedy. This is an opportunity. He set his glass down, eyes lighting with the unwavering faith he always had in me. I've been waiting for you to say that. We mapped it out that very night. Ethan knew the shady alterations Ryan had submitted to the city's permit office. He had quietly saved the evidence. I held all the passwords, algorithms, and processes, things no one at Caldwell could understand because Ryan had canceled every training session. If I went back now, I'd save them, but I'd also let Ryan hide behind his father's shield. But if I stood firm, I could create a completely new path, one I controlled, free from any Caldwell. Ethan suggested, you could start your own consulting firm. The city needs oversight experts, especially on major projects. With your reputation and system, they'll trust you immediately. I looked at him, a surge of determination rising within me. I had never thought of leaving Caldwell, but wasn't this my chance to finally escape their shadow? I opened my laptop right there on the vanity, wedding dress bunching awkwardly, but I didn't care. My fingers typed out the first lines of a business plan. The name appeared on the screen, Harris Consulting Systems. My heart raced, not from fear but exhilaration. All night Ethan and I worked. I sketched out the structure of a firm specializing in building and supervising project management systems for city agencies, catching the very violations Ryan had committed. Ethan would handle administrative support from the start. The next morning when the phone shrilled again, I just smiled and shut it off. I was no longer a fired employee. I was the founder of a new future. That afternoon, sitting on the hotel balcony overlooking sunlit Denver, I told myself, Ryan thought he'd given me the cruelest wedding gift. But in truth, he had handed me the greatest gift of all, freedom. And I would turn that freedom into proof that no one, not even the Caldwell family, could bury my talent or my ambition. In the first days after the wedding, I hardly slept. Ethan and I sat in our small downtown Denver apartment, papers spread across the dining table, the warm light above making it feel like a makeshift war room. I filled out registration forms, drafted contract terms, sketched logos, and outlined operating strategies. By the fifth day, Harris Consulting Systems was officially established. That name didn't just carry my last name, it was a declaration. From now on, I walked on my own terms, no longer under Caldwell's shadow. Starting out seemed daunting, but Ethan had been right. The Denver City Department of Construction was in urgent need of a qualified consulting unit to oversee the quality of major project submissions. When I sent in my proposal, my application immediately stood out. I included full research reports and data proving how my system once helped Caldwell cut both project costs and timelines. Just 1 week later, I got the first call from the department. They wanted Harris Consulting as an independent partner, reviewing all blueprints and processes from bidding firms. That first contract not only provided financial stability but also official recognition from city authorities. I had access to records, the ability to compare blueprints, and most importantly, the authority to detect violations. I knew one thing for certain: Ryan no longer had anywhere to hide. Only weeks later, the real estate world was buzzing with news of Caldwell architecture in free fall. Clients canceled contracts en masse because updated documents never arrived. Several projects were suspended midway. Headlines splashed across papers: Caldwell architecture facing bankruptcy amid technical violations. As I reviewed submissions filed with the city, I immediately recognized the patterns. Load-bearing walls suspiciously thin, substandard materials listed, safety features missing from layouts. I didn't need to look far to know Ryan was behind them. But this time nothing was hidden. With my new contract, I was required to report directly to the city. Ethan laid a stack of files on the table, his voice serious. "Danielle, if these violations are exposed, Caldwell will lose everything." I exhaled slowly. That's the truth. They chose fraud, now they'll pay for it. The scandal exploded within a month. The city officially announced Caldwell Architecture had committed severe building code violations, especially in the multimillion-dollar downtown commercial redevelopment. The contract was cancelled immediately and reassigned to another firm. Caldwell lost everything while headlines blared, 30-year Caldwell empire shaken to its core. Gregory, once hailed as Denver's architecture icon, appeared in newspapers gaunt and hollow-eyed. I heard he was briefly hospitalized after a mild heart attack from the overwhelming stress. Yet I felt no satisfaction, only bitterness for a man brilliant enough to build a legacy, but blind enough to destroy it for his son. Ryan. His name flooded investigation reports. Authorities confirmed he had personally signed off on faulty plans and even altered documents after engineers had approved them. His professional license was suspended. Business partners cut ties overnight. Once arrogant and untouchable, he was now a punchline in the industry. Meanwhile, Harris Consulting Systems grew beyond anything I had imagined. After the first contract, 2 more offers arrived from nearby cities. They wanted me to apply my system to review new high-rise and residential developments. I hired 3 young staff members, training them to run the system, slowly building a professional team. One evening, as Ethan and I sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights, I chuckled softly. Who would have thought one text firing me on my wedding day would lead me here? Ethan slipped an arm around my shoulders, his voice warm. "You weren't rejected, Danielle. You just finally found where you truly belong." I sipped my wine, eyes fixed on the half-built towers in the distance, the ruins of Caldwell's collapse. Inside me, a fierce conviction burned. My past at Caldwell had only been a stepping stone. My true future began with Harris Consulting. 1 year after my wedding, my life had completely transformed. Harris Consulting Systems had grown from 3 employees to 15. We signed contracts with 3 different cities, taking on oversight of projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I moved between offices like a true businesswoman, confident and in control. Every step reminded me that leaving Caldwell had never been a loss. It was liberation. One September morning, while I was reviewing inspection reports for a new residential development in Aurora, my assistant Grace walked in holding a thick cream envelope. "Danielle, this was delivered directly for you." "Thunders." "Gregory Caldwell." I froze for a moment. His name felt like a cold wind rushing in from the past. Slowly I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, every line carefully penned. "Danielle, some debts can never be repaid with money, but acknowledgement is the first step. I have lost much this past year. My reputation, my clients, and nearly the entire company. My son Ryan has had his license suspended and been forced into an ethics program. And I have realized my greatest mistake was not allowing Ryan to fail, but ignoring your warnings. I write not to ask for forgiveness but to beg for a chance. Caldwell Architecture is restructuring. We need you. Not as an employee but as an independent consultant. You may set every condition. If you accept, I believe together we can salvage what remains of this legacy." Signed at the bottom, Gregory Caldwell. I read it 3 times, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to throw it in the trash to let Caldwell crumble. But another voice whispered, this was my chance to rewrite the rules with me finally in control. That evening I showed the letter to Ethan. He read it silently, then looked up at me. "What are you going to say?" Leaning back, my voice was calm. "I'll meet him. But not to save Caldwell. I want to prove that if they need me, they'll have to accept every condition I set." The meeting took place in a small cafe on the outskirts of Denver, not the grand office halls of the past. Gregory arrived early, looking thinner, hair completely white, deep lines etched by stress. When he saw me enter, he immediately stood and extended his hand. "Danielle, thank you for agreeing to meet." I sat, nodded slightly. The air between us was heavy. After a few minutes, he admitted with blunt honesty Caldwell's failures and collapse. We have nothing left to lose. Without your system, every project will continue to fall apart. I'm prepared for you to take control of all processes. I crossed my arms, meeting his eyes. If I agree, every decision runs through Harris Consulting. Caldwell will only execute. I will set the standards and monitor closely. And most importantly, Ryan starts from the bottom. Gregory stiffened. You mean? He won't hold any management role. He'll learn again as a trainee. Daily coursework in project management, building codes, and professional ethics. Not a single session skipped. If he fails, Caldwell loses its partnership immediately. Gregory fell silent for a long time. I saw his hands tremble around the coffee cup. Finally, he nodded. I agree. Ryan needs this lesson. And so do I. I wrote down the conditions, signed the paper, and slid it across to him. This is the only path left for Caldwell to survive. You can choose it. He took the paper, eyes moist. Danielle, I know I don't deserve this mercy. But I promise this time we'll do it right. I stood straight in my coat. Mercy? Don't mistake this, Gregory. This isn't kindness. This is justice. I walked out, leaving the once proud man clutching the agreement with shaking hands. Inside me wasn't triumph, but a steady, quiet strength. This time I held the cards. 1 year after that cafe meeting, everything had changed so much that even I sometimes struggled to believe it was real. Harris Consulting Systems had become a household name across Colorado, expanding into New Mexico and Utah. Cities sought us out to sign contracts for project oversight because they trusted that the system I built could catch every fraud. From 3 employees, I now led a team of more than 30 working out of a sleek office in downtown Denver. Meanwhile, Caldwell Architecture, the firm once on the brink of collapse, was slowly regaining life under the strict supervision of Harris Consulting. Every project they submitted went through my team's review. There was no room left for shortcuts or manipulations like the ones Ryan had once relied on. Caldwell was finding its footing again, but as a completely new company. Transparent, disciplined, and accountable. The biggest surprise of all was Ryan. Under our agreement, he had been forced to start as a trainee. At first, I expected rebellion, maybe that he'd quit within days. But he didn't. Ryan showed up on time every morning, sat through training, studied processes, and completed exams. He was required to take detailed notes, turn in weekly reports, and endure assessments I personally supervised. I still remember the first time he failed an exam on fire safety codes. He stayed up the entire night to retake it by morning. At first, I thought it was just pride keeping him going. But little by little, I noticed something else. During site inspections, he no longer scoffed or shrugged. He listened carefully, asked questions, even volunteered to stand with engineers to check materials. Once, when he discovered a contractor trying to substitute inferior steel, Ryan reported it directly to me, his voice steady. I won't let this happen again. In that moment, I glimpsed a different Ryan. Not the arrogant man who had once fired me on my wedding day, but someone learning what responsibility meant. Gregory had changed too. No longer the father who shielded his son from every mistake, he stepped back and let Ryan carry the weight of his own decisions. Gregory regularly submitted reports to me, his tone no longer domineering but careful, respectful. I knew that the storms had finally forced both father and son to grow in ways they should have long ago. As for me, every time I walked into Harris Consulting's office and saw my young, passionate team at work, I smiled. The very thing Ryan once tried to use to bury me had become the foundation of my own empire. Proof that the sweetest revenge isn't watching others fall. It's standing higher than ever through integrity and hard work. One crisp autumn afternoon, I visited the construction site of the downtown redevelopment project, the same contract Caldwell had once lost in disgrace. Now it was alive again under dual supervision from Harris Consulting and the city. I spotted Ryan at the scaffolding, blueprint in hand, calling out specifications to engineers. Sweat lined his brow, but his voice was firm, clear. When he noticed me, Ryan looked up. His eyes held no arrogance, no bitterness. He simply said, "Thank you for making me start over." I nodded slightly, offering no words. Because I knew some apologies don't need to be spoken. Actions are the real proof. That evening, back home on the balcony with Ethan, Denver's skyline glowed, skyscrapers rising proudly. Ethan held my hand and asked, "Do you regret not letting Caldwell collapse completely?" I shook my head, my gaze fixed on the city. No. because it was never just about revenge. I wanted to set a new standard for the entire industry. And now everyone knows. Safety and integrity cannot be ignored. In that moment, I realized my story had become more than personal justice. It had grown into a lesson for the whole community. True strength lies not in destruction, but in transforming adversity into the foundation for success. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. One truth rang sharp inside me. The sweetest revenge is success, and I had achieved it in a way no one ever expected. Danielle's story isn't just about sweet revenge against those who tried to crush her. It reflects a real truth in life. Whether at work or in family, there will always be people who try to belittle, exploit, or push us aside. But instead of drowning in bitterness, Danielle turned adversity into strength, building success from the very place that once sought to destroy her. In real life, the lesson is just as clear. Success, integrity, and personal strength are always the most powerful answers to injustice. What do you think about Danielle's journey and the Caldwell family's transformation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more dramatic and meaningful family stories in the episodes to come.